Congressman Michael McCaul, Republican from Texas, ranking member of the Foreign Affairs Committee and also member of the Homeland Security Committee. And for years, you chaired Homeland. And when you look at where we are with the oil reserves today, I've heard you say it is always a national security issue when you get low on your oil reserves.
Right. It's strategic petroleum reserve. It's not the political petroleum reserve. He's playing politics with this national security asset that we have that's really developed really for a time of war that we need the energy. And because we haven't produced energy in this country, because the Biden plan is cutting down, stopping the Keystone pipeline, allowing Putin to connect his pipeline, Nord Stream 2, into Europe, and we're just not producing the oil. Then we have to beg OPEC, right? Of all things, have to go to the Middle East and beg the Saudis to produce more oil. This is very dangerous. It's a dangerous policy.
Is there anything going on that we should know about in terms of Russia's role in this? The president often, will go down that lane via his press secretary.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, Putin and his pipeline into Europe, Nord Stream 2, why did the president of the United States waive those sanctions that I implemented in the national security interest of the United States, allowing Putin to connect his pipeline into Europe? Putin now wants to shut Ukraine off to the Black Sea. It is an energy issue. It's always a national security issue. We talk about energy. And it's really the Biden's creation. It's the Biden administration's failed policies that have created this crisis that we're in. And we're going into these midterms. And Harris, I'm telling you, I hear it all the time back home, inflation and gas prices.
It's interesting because the president is criticized for flipping the border policies that Trump had in place, but he was flipping some congressional policies, or at least legislation that had been put in place too with regard to energy. That's fascinating to hear from you. The other part about this is Biden was so slow to stop buying Russian oil when the war against Ukraine first started. And now I'm curious, he was tapping reserve then. What options do we have when that gets so low that's not an option anymore?
Well, he's canceled all the options, and now it has to be green energy. You can't do that overnight.
But Congressman, we all know that the majority of green energy is provided by through fossil fuel and coal rather. So what is he saying? Like, that's not even possible to transition at this point because we still need the fossil fuels.
It's not the flip of a switch. You're right. And we were going to put LNG terminals into Europe that would have created more energy produced in the United States and sent it to Europe. That was part of our strategic plan, if you will. He's turned it into politics, and boy, it's a disaster.
Here's Senator Cotton in Focus yesterday calling out Democrats for blocking American energy independence.
The Democrats want energy prices to be high because they want to end American production of fossil fuels, oil and gas and coal. They may not say it in the 45 days before an election. They may rely on gimmicks like releasing oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which is also dangerous to our national security. But mark my words, on November 9th, the Democrats are going to go back to openly waging war on American oil, gas, and coal.
What do our enemies see at this point?
They see weakness. We're projecting weakness. We can't develop our own energy. After the fall and debacle of Afghanistan, what did Putin see? Weakness. What does Chairman Xi in China see? Weakness. The Ayatollah, Kim Jong-un, North Korea. That's why these hot spots are flaring up all over the globe, making the world a more dangerous place. Because anytime you project weakness, you invite aggression. And it goes back to, Chamberlain and Hitler to Reagan talking about peace through strength.
Well, you know what? I was just writing this down as examples. So Iran now, as of yesterday, sending fighters to help Russia take as much of Ukraine as it can, at least force the Ukrainians back to the table so they can take that little piece that Russia can call victory. And then what is China doing? I mean, she just said, hey, with my next term, can you build the military, not just technology, but really build almost double in size, which would leave us conceivably outnumbered if we had to ever do anything.
So imagine that. Russia's buying Iranian drones going into Crimea. When you see the cities, about a third of the infrastructure being bombed, it's Iranian drones going in to do this. And then Chairman Xi announces military and economic domination of the world by 2050, the 100-year marathon. He's looking at Taiwan. Taiwan has 90% of our semiconductor capabilities and manufacturing. And he is watching Ukraine very closely.
World domination by 2050. I don't know if you caught what Peter Doocy said, but he was talking about the goals of the administration in terms of green energy by 2050. Those are some really different goals. Very different goals.
And what is China doing? They're not going green.
Counting their money?
They're in 140 countries right now, lighting up coal-fired plants.
Oh, yeah.
And polluting the atmosphere.
Okay, let's move to this. You're right. It won't be as clean as our coal. Nope. No. It's looking like the Federal Reserve will approve a fourth consecutive interest rate hike next month. And experts are saying it will be another supersized one. Those hikes, all in an effort to help the decades high inflation come down, because you know the Inflation Reduction Act didn't actually reduce inflation. Never could. The unrelenting price spike has led Bloomberg to this grim projection. 100% of recession in the next year. Peter Doocy was asking the tough questions, as he always does.
How is it that we can be barreling towards a recession and the economy is, as the president says, strong as hell?
What we are seeing right now is the job market is strong, the labor force is strong, and that is not what we see usually before a recession. And so and a lot of that is because of the work that this president has done.
What is she talking about?
Look, you know, we had the American Rescue Plan. I call it the American Inflation Plan. Then they had this Inflation Reduction Act. It's not reducing inflation. They've thrown gasoline on a fire by spending so much money.
Wow.
Remember American Rescue, supposedly $2 trillion being, propped into the economy. And that's why we have this inflation that's going on right now. And now the Fed monetary policy is to raise these interest rates and try to catch up with this inflation. And they're going to cause a recession in the process. So we're going into a recession right now.
Yeah, we already are, because we've seen back-to-back quarters of lower GDP. And that's just one of the indicators that we mix in, but it's a key one. But the problem now is going to be that people's dollars, we're already missing a month's worth of salary based on the inflation we have right now. Meaning all the bills we pay and all the food and everything that we eat, we would need to make 13 months' salary in order to pay for it all.
That's exactly right. I mean, it's about affordability. Can you pay your rent? Can you buy a house when interest rates are going up? Can you eat? Can you buy groceries? Can you buy gas, which is going up astronomically? And hey, how about your retirement plan? I know we've seen a 20% reduction in all of our retirement plans.
Congressman, I've had, because I've been traveling recently, one of the places I went to was your state to see the border. We'll get to that in a second. But I've been traveling and people have been telling me my nest egg is destroyed. I'm in my late 60s, early 70s. They're saying, what do we do? And we don't have jobs to wait it out any longer. We've left the job market. It is a heartbreaker.
And it has political consequences and ramifications. When people have anxiety about their nest egg being, 20% taken out of it when they were retiring, and now they're thinking about having to go back to work.
Yeah, that's true.
It is. It's not good.
All right, let's get to this, because it really is what you are an expert on in terms of homeland security and the border. Hundreds of people who would love to cross into our nation, many from Venezuela, have assembled a caravan and hit Guatemala and their border first, making their way toward the U.S. I mean, look at their forces fending off, trying to hold their border, and look how small that area is. Our area is 1,933 miles long, with maybe some chunks of wall because our president doesn't really want to secure it. Can you imagine? That little bit is what they're facing. All of this comes after President Biden invoked the Trump-era Title 42 to send Venezuelan illegals back to Mexico. So he did that a few days ago because we're getting inundated, and so are now those Northern Triangle countries that we promised we were going to be good neighbors with. The policy will also allow as many as 24,000 Venezuelans to be accepted into our country as long as they have a sponsor. Congressman, you're looking for answers on that new policy. I know you wrote a letter to Secretary of State Blinken and Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas. Here's a quote, a pullout from your letter. It seems more likely to serve as a magnet for additional migrants from Venezuela and elsewhere. Why did you write that?
Well, because this, first of all, this whole policy of reversing remain in Mexico and the migrant protection protocols has created this chaos at the border. And we've seen 3.5 million illegals come into this country. We can't absorb this. They have no legal status. In addition, enough fentanyls to kill the entire population 7 times over. We have almost 100,000 young people dying just this year alone from fentanyl.
Heartbreaking.
And it's killing a generation. But why are we going to let Venezuelans in by airplane, right, if they have a sponsor, and then deny them entry at the border? If we can deny Venezuelans entry at the border, why can't we deny the rest of them?
I think I know. Because it's a lot more surreptitious that way. It's harder to track. You don't have reporters down there who can get the cameras of all of the things that are left at the border as they take off everything and leave behind all sorts of unmentionables to try to get into this country with a lighter weight and crawl through fence lines and so on and so forth. Remember how they were surreptitiously moving those minors in those night flights up to places like Tennessee. Senator Blackburn told me about that. They're harder to track. I mean, at the border, we can see them.
Well, that's why we're busing them out of my state to, here to New York and to D.C. And so you can get a little taste of what we experience every day in my state of Texas.
And it's working, right? I mean, Democrats are responding.
I think they're seeing the pain that this policy has inflicted on the nation. And when you talk about 100,000 young people dying,
yeah,
that's more than Vietnam over 20 years.
Wow. We'll have that be the last word.
Thank you.
I appreciate you being here.
You too, Harris. Thanks.
That's a tough detail.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.